My brother slept with my wife. Now he's taking me to court for emotional abuse. I'm a 36-year-old man, and I swear to God, if anyone had told me I'd end up here, alone, broke, and being sued by my own brother for emotional abuse after he slept with my wife, I would have laughed in their face. But this is my life now. And it started with one betrayal that ruined everything. Her name is Sophie. My wife, well, ex-wife now, I guess. We were together for 12 years. Solid. Or at least I thought we were. The kind of couple people called stable, safe, boring even. And I was fine with that. I loved her. I trusted her. And then there's my brother, Damien, 32. The family golden boy. The funny one. The charming one. The one who somehow always lands on his feet no matter how much he screws up. He was the kind of guy everyone liked instantly, especially women. I never saw it coming. The first sign was subtle. Sophie started going to yoga on Tuesday nights. Nothing unusual. Then she started getting texts at odd hours. She'd smile, laugh quietly, brush it off when I asked. Just work friends, she said, but my gut wouldn't let it go. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. She wasn't in bed. I went downstairs, half asleep, and there she was, whispering on the phone in the kitchen. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her face, the way she smiled, the way her voice dropped low, intimate. I didn't say anything. I just went back upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing, my heart pounding. The next morning, I asked her who she was talking to. She laughed, said it was Anna from work. But I already knew. It took me 2 weeks to find the proof. 2 weeks of pretending everything was fine while I quietly checked phone bills, looked for patterns, pieced things together. And when I finally saw it, her messages to Damien, I thought I was going to throw up. They weren't even careful. Texts, photos, plans, hotel receipts. I confronted her that night. She didn't even deny it. She just cried, said it was a mistake. Said Damien, didn't mean to hurt me. Didn't mean to hurt me. I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. My own brother, the one person I thought I could count on no matter what. I called him, screamed at him. He hung up. And that's when everything started to spiral. Instead of apologizing, instead of being ashamed, Damien went on the offensive, told our family that I was unhinged, that I'd been abusive for years, that I was manipulative and dangerous. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. People I'd known my whole life, my own parents, started pulling away, telling me I needed help, that maybe I was too angry. And then Damien served me with court papers. He was suing me for emotional distress, for harassment, for abuse. I sat on the floor of my empty house. Sophie gone, my family gone, everything shattered, and I just kept thinking, how did I get here? How do you survive being stabbed in the back by the people you loved most? And worse, how do you prove you're not the villain when the whole world already decided you are? I don't even remember how long I sat on that living room floor after the court papers arrived. Hours, maybe. It felt like time stopped. Everything felt surreal. My hands were still trembling when I read the accusations for the 10th time. Emotional abuse, harassment, threats. I could barely breathe. My own brother, the same kid I used to protect from bullies, the same guy I lent money to when he was broke, was trying to destroy me. And worse, people believed him. I kept thinking back, replaying every moment from the past year, wondering if I'd missed something, if I'd done something to deserve this. But the truth was brutal and simple. I didn't. They just didn't care. The following days were the darkest I've ever known. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from relatives, friends, some offering lukewarm sympathy, others outright accusing me. My mother called me crying, asking me what I'd done to drive Damien to this. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash something. But instead, I just sat there, numb. I didn't eat. I barely slept. The house felt haunted by memories. Photos of me and Sophie on the walls, old gifts, the scent of her perfume still lingering in the bedroom. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I finally reached out to an old friend, Emilian, one of the few people who hadn't immediately picked a side. We met for coffee, and the moment he saw me, his face changed. Man, he said quietly, you look like hell. I told him everything. The affair, the lawsuit, the lies. He listened, really listened. Then he said something that stuck with me. They're counting on you falling apart. That's what people like that do. They burn your life down and then act like you're the problem for screaming about the fire. That was the first time something inside me shifted. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't abusive. I was betrayed. And I wasn't going to let them bury me without a fight. I hired a lawyer the next day. It wiped out most of my savings. But I didn't care. I handed over everything. Texts, call logs, emails, hotel receipts. My lawyer, Nora, was sharp, no nonsense, and most importantly, She believed me. She told me something no one else had. They don't have a case, but they're hoping to break you before you can prove it. It made sense. Damien and Sophie knew me. They knew I was someone who kept the peace, who avoided drama, who hated conflict. They were betting I'd collapse under the weight of it all. I wasn't going to give them that. In the weeks that followed, I started piecing myself back together. I moved out of the house, got a tiny apartment. I went back to the gym. Small steps, but they mattered. I even blocked Sophie and Damien on everything. For the first time since it all exploded, I felt a sliver of control. But just when I thought things were stabilizing, it got worse. Someone, probably Sophie, leaked the story to social media. Not the truth, of course. Their version. The one where I was the abusive husband, where poor Sophie and my traumatized brother had no choice but to find comfort in each other. It went viral, not on some massive national scale, but locally, our town, our social circles, our workplaces. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly DMing me. What the hell happened? Is it true? I'm so sorry, man. I wanted to disappear, but I didn't. Instead, I met with Nora again. We strategized. We documented everything, every lie, every post, every message. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something other than rage or despair. I felt determination, because if they wanted war, one was ready to burn the whole thing down first. I think there's a moment in every betrayal where something inside you dies for good. Not the initial shock, not the heartbreak, but the cold, permanent death of whatever part of you still believes that people are basically good. That moment came for me the day I saw the first post. It was on Facebook, of all places. A blurry photo of me from a family barbecue last summer, with the caption, "Sometimes the people who smile the most are the ones who hide the darkest secrets. Believe a survivors. Familia first." No names. No direct accusations. But I knew. Everyone knew. The comments were full of people I barely knew, chiming in with their 2 cents. People I'd shared drinks with. People who'd smiled to my face. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands frozen, as the likes and shares climbed. I wasn't even angry at first. I was numb. I knew it had to be Sophie or Damien, or both. They'd weaponized sympathy. They knew exactly how to twist the knife. And I could already feel the news tightening. Work colleagues sending careful emails. Friends checking in, but keeping their distance. Even my father stopped returning my calls. My own father. I could barely recognize my life anymore. But there was one person who refused to abandon me. Emilian. He showed up one night with beers and takeaway. No pity in his eyes. No careful silences. Just the same blunt honesty he'd always had. We sat on the floor of my empty apartment, eating straight from the containers. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. "You know what this is, right?" he said quietly. "It's not about you. It's about control. They're rewriting the story so they don't have to live with what they did. And people love a good villain." He wasn't wrong. I spent the next week in full survival mode. Work, lawyer meetings, sleep in fragments. I deleted social media, changed my number. I kept my circle microscopic. Emilian, Nora, my cousin Lee. That's it. But the pressure kept building. The legal case dragged on. Damon's lawyer was aggressive. They painted me as volatile, unstable, obsessive. They dragged up every argument I'd ever had with Sophie, twisted every text message into evidence of abuse. I sat in that courtroom some days and thought, this can't be real. And then, because apparently life wasn't done gutting me, came the final blow. Sophie announced she was pregnant. I found out the way everyone else did, a picture on Instagram. Her, glowing, Damien, smiling beside her. Caption, "Sometimes life gives you the family you were always meant to have." I stared at the screen for so long my vision blurred. It was like I physically couldn't move, couldn't think. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was total. They were building a new life on the ashes of mine. And worse, they were making me the villain of their love story. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the balcony of my apartment until the sun came up, chain smoking, my hands shaking so hard I dropped the lighter 3 times. But in that haze of exhaustion and grief, something in me hardened. I realized I had 2 choices. Let them write the ending to my story, or take the pen back. The next morning, I called Nora. I told her I wanted to countersue for defamation, for emotional distress, for every lie, every smear, every ounce of damage they'd done. Her voice lit up on the other end of the line. "I was hoping you'd say that," she said. And just like that, something new sparked inside me. Not hope, not yet, but something close to it. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. I don't know if I can explain how it felt that morning, the morning I decided I was done playing defense. It was like something finally clicked. I wasn't going to win them back, my parents, the so-called friends, the people who'd chosen to believe the worst about me, but I could do something more important. I could make sure they didn't win either. The first thing I did was sit down with Nora. We went over everything. The case, the public posts, the slander, the quiet whispers that had turned my life upside down. You have grounds, she said. It won't be easy, but it's doable. I nodded. I wasn't afraid of a fight anymore. I'd already lost everything worth losing. What hit me the hardest, though, was how much of my past was tied up in them. Damien wasn't just my brother. He was my childhood, my family barbecues, my wedding toast. And Sophie. Sophie was my entire adult life. Every trip, every lazy Sunday, every plan I'd ever made for the future. And now they were the people trying to erase me. I started therapy. I had to. The nightmares weren't stopping. I kept waking up in cold sweats, my heart hammering. Sometimes it wasn't even the affair or the lawsuit. It was the sheer weight of betrayal that crushed me. The knowledge that I could never go back to the version of myself that trusted people blindly. I changed my locks, bought new clothes, closed old social media accounts. Little things, but they mattered. They were symbols of something bigger, survival. The court case dragged on. Every time I stepped into that courtroom and saw Damien sitting there, smug, polished, playing the victim, I felt like I was walking through fire. Sophie never looked at me directly, not once. She clung to Damon's hand like her life depended on it. And honestly, maybe it did. They'd built their entire relationship on a lie, on a shared destruction, and now they were trapped in it. It was during one of those sessions, midway through the 5th hearing, that something extraordinary happened. One of the friends who had ghosted me, someone I'd grown up with, approached me quietly outside the courthouse. His name was Julian. We hadn't spoken since the rumors started. He looked awkward, guilty, his voice low. I wanted to say I'm sorry, he said. I didn't know who to believe. But this has gone too far. I didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then he added, I can testify, if you need me to. I remember things about Damien, about how he's always twisted the truth when it suited him. I almost broke down right there, because for the first time in months, someone believed me. Nora was ecstatic when I told her. She moved fast. We filed the countersuit officially. Defamation, emotional distress, the works. And then, 2 days later, another twist. Sophie reached out. She emailed me. Just one line. Can we talk? Just us. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding so hard I could barely think. 4 hours. I debated. My friends told me to ignore it. Nora warned me to be careful. But in the end, I agreed. Because part of me, some broken, stubborn part, needed to look her in the eye one last time. I needed to ask her the question that had haunted me since the beginning. Why? Why him? Why like this? I met her in a public cafe, middle of the day, neutral ground. She looked different, thinner, hollowed out. She kept her hands wrapped around the coffee cup like she needed it to anchor herself. The first thing she said was, I'm sorry. And for a second, I didn't breathe. I'm so sorry, she repeated, her voice cracking. It was never supposed to happen like this. I was unhappy. I was stupid. Damien, he manipulated me too. I swear. He twisted everything. He made me think. She stopped, swallowed, looked away. I didn't interrupt. I just let her talk. She kept going, haltingly, painfully, laying bare every twisted detail. The affair, the lies, the way Damien had pushed her, isolated her, played on her insecurities. I listened, not because I wanted to forgive, but because I needed the truth. And then she dropped the bomb. I'm not keeping the baby, she whispered. Tears filled her eyes. I can't. It's too much. I can't live with it. I didn't know what to say. My throat was dry, my mind numb. We sat in silence for a long time. When I finally stood to leave, she grabbed my hand. Just briefly. I really did love you, she said softly. I lost myself. I pulled my hand away, left without another word. In the cold air outside, I realized something. It still hurt. God. It still hurt, but it didn't own me anymore. They could lie. They could sue. They could rewrite the story 100 times over. But the truth was mine, and I wasn't finished yet. The day after that conversation with Sophie, I woke up feeling different. I don't know how to describe it. I wasn't healed, far from it. But something heavy in my chest had shifted. Maybe it was the truth finally being spoken aloud. Maybe it was the realization that even she, Sophie, wasn't the person I thought she was. But not entirely the monster I'd built her into in my head either. I still didn't forgive her. I never will. But I understood. The next few weeks became a blur of legal meetings, therapy, and this strange half-life, where I was both fighting for justice and learning how to exist without the two people who had defined so much of my identity. Nora kept me grounded. We have momentum, she said. The countersuit has teeth. And with testimony from Julian and others, We have a real shot. But you need to stay calm. Don't give them anything they can twist. I followed her advice like it was gospel. I cut off any emotional responses. No texts. No social media. No lashing out. No emotional outbursts. I moved through every court date like a machine, polite, factual, detached. And it worked. Their side started slipping. Damon's story kept changing under pressure. Sophie's absence from some of the hearings raised eyebrows. The judge started looking less convinced by their sob stories. The friends who'd ghosted me, a few of them started circling back. Messages trickled in. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I see it differently now. I should have known better. It was bittersweet. Because the truth is, you never really forget who abandoned you when it mattered most. One evening, alone in my apartment, I pulled out an old photo album. One of those big clumsy ones from before everything was digital. There were pictures of me and Damien as kids, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family holidays. And for the first time, I let myself cry. Not for Sophie, not for the marriage, but for the brother I lost, the family I thought I had, the version of my life that never really existed the way I believed it did. The next morning, I got the call that changed everything. Nora's voice was practically shaking. We've got it, she said. Sophie made a statement, confidential, but she confirmed Damien coerced her, that he manipulated the story. It's over. They're dropping the case. I sat there in stunned silence. It's over, I repeated. It's over, she confirmed. The case was dropped. The defamation countersuit settled privately. No more hearings. No more lies in court. Just over. But the weird thing was, there was no joy, no sense of triumph. Just exhaustion. A vast, heavy emptiness. Where my old life used to be. I got messages from family, from my father. We're so sorry. We didn't know. Let's talk. I ignored them all, because by then, I understood something I hadn't before. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. I spent the next few months quietly rebuilding. I didn't move back to the house. I sold it. I kept the apartment. I took a new job, smaller company, quieter life. I started running again. I reconnected with people who had always stood by me, and bit by bit, piece by piece, I became someone new. Not the man I was before, but someone stronger, harder, less trusting, maybe, but still standing. Sometimes I still see them, online, or by accident in town. Sophie and Damien. They look happy, I guess. Or maybe they're just good at faking it. I don't feel anything when I see them. Not anger, not sadness, just nothing. And maybe that's the real victory, because they took everything from me. But they didn't take me, and I won't let anyone do that ever again. The weeks after the case was dropped felt strangely hollow. I kept waiting for some kind of relief to hit me, some flood of emotion, that would make it all feel worth it. But it never came. The truth is, I didn't feel victorious. I felt emptied out. People kept telling me I'd won. But what did I win? A legal battle that never should have existed. The right to keep my name. I didn't have my family. I didn't have Sophie. I didn't even have the version of myself I used to recognize. I had scraps. That's what betrayal leaves you with. Scraps of the person you used to be. But life doesn't stop for your heartbreak. So I kept moving. I sold the house. It felt like the right thing to do. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. Every wall in that place held echoes I couldn't stand to hear. I donated most of the furniture. Kept only what I needed. Moved into a smaller, quieter place on the edge of town. Somewhere no one knew me. Somewhere I could start breathing without the weight of history crushing my chest. And then something I didn't expect happened. One afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a message. Not from Damien, not from Sophie, from their mother, my stepmother. Her message was short, polite, almost clinical. I'm sorry for what happened. I always knew Damien had problems, but I never imagined it would come to this. I just wanted you to know I believe you. I read it twice, then set my phone down. I didn't know how to feel. This woman had been a part of our lives since I was 12. She'd always adored Damien, always spoiled him, excused him. But here she was, years too late, acknowledging what the rest of the family still refused to say. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Some wounds are too deep for words. But that message, it stayed with me, not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded me that sometimes, even the people closest to the villain know the truth, but stay silent until the damage is already done. I started therapy twice a week, not because I wanted to heal fast, but because I knew I was carrying something dark inside me, something dangerous. I hated them, both of them. The depth of that hatred scared me sometimes. I didn't want to become bitter. I didn't want to rot from the inside out because of what they did. And that's what therapy helped me understand. They could take everything, but I was still the one who got to decide who I became after. One night, months after everything ended, I ran into Sophie. Pure accident. Grocery store. We both froze. She looked thinner, tired, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked older, For a second, neither of us said anything. Then she murmured, "Hi." I nodded. I didn't say a word. I watched her eyes, how they flickered, how they searched my face for something. Anger, sadness, forgiveness. I gave her nothing, and then I walked away. I don't know how long I sat in my car afterward. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, but underneath the adrenaline, there was something else. Peace, because I realized I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not closure, not apologies, not explanations. She was no longer part of my story. Not really. And Damien, I hadn't seen him in months. Not since the last court session. The few people who still spoke to both of us told me he was struggling, drinking, isolated, bitter. I didn't care. For the first time, I truly didn't care. They were gone, and I was still here. Not fixed, not whole, but alive. And for now, that was enough. It's strange how, after all the screaming, the heartbreak, the courtroom drama, and the lies, what's left isn't anger. It's quiet. It's the quiet that gets you. I spent months after that brief encounter with Sophie in a state I can only describe as numb functionality. I went to work. I ate. I slept. But everything felt muted. Therapy helped. Running helped. Amelian, he never let go of me, never let me sink too deep. But still, there were nights I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd let my entire life collapse around me, without seeing it coming. The legal side was done. Damien and Sophie had disappeared into the distance, probably still together, still telling themselves whatever story they needed to sleep at night. I'd stopped looking, stopped caring, or so I thought, until I got the email. Anonymous. No subject, no name. Just a short message. I think you deserve to know. He's done it before. You're not the first. There was an attachment. Photos. Screenshots. At first I thought it was some sick joke. I almost deleted it without opening it. But curiosity, or something darker, got the better of me. The photos were old, years old, but I recognized Damien instantly. Recognized the woman too, an old family friend, someone who had disappeared from our lives without explanation years back. The messages were worse. Explicit, manipulative. It wasn't just me. He'd done this before, possibly more than once. And I knew right then, I couldn't let it go. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about making sure no one else went through what I had. I met with Nora, showed her everything. She was quiet at first. Then she sighed and said what I already knew. If we push this, it's going to get ugly. Again. I nodded. I don't care. I reached out to the woman from the photos. It took time, but eventually she agreed to meet me. We sat in a tiny cafe on the edge of town, both of us awkward, wary, and then she told me her story. It was almost identical. The charm, the manipulation, the betrayal, the lies, the isolation afterward. She'd stayed silent because, like me, she thought no one would believe her, and because Damien had a way of making you question your own reality. We talked for hours, and when I left that cafe, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Fire. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. I reached out to others. Quietly. Carefully. More stories came out. Small things. Rumors. But all of it painted the same picture. Damien wasn't just a liar. He was dangerous. The difference was, I had the strength now to do something about it. The next steps weren't easy. Filing new complaints. Talking to lawyers. Preparing to drag it all back into the light when every instinct told me to bury it and move on. But I couldn't. Because the person I'd become, the man I was now, refused to let this cycle continue. They could take my marriage. They could smear my name. But they weren't going to take my silence too. Not anymore. And whatever came next, I was ready. The day I officially filed the new complaint felt nothing like the day they first served me court papers. I wasn't scared this time. I wasn't shaking, or panicked, or lost. I felt steady, cold, even, like I was finally the one holding the knife instead of bleeding from it. Nora was by my side every step of the way. We filed the harassment report, the defamation case, and attached the new witness statements. The other women Damien had manipulated, lied to, used. It was slow, painfully slow, but I didn't care. I wasn't rushing this. Word started to spread, quietly, at first. Whispers, little shifts in the way people looked at me, and then the dam broke. One of the women, Emma, decided she was done hiding. She went public on her own social media. She told her story without using names, but everyone knew. She talked about manipulation, about gaslighting, about the way certain people like Damien, ruin lives without ever leaving visible scars. The response was immediate. Messages started pouring in, some supportive, some apologetic, and some of the ugliest, desperate to defend Damien, to paint us all as liars. But it didn't matter, because this time, people were listening. Even my family, my parents, who had once looked me in the eye, and asked me what I'd done. They reached out. My mother called, sobbing. My father sent a letter. I didn't answer. I wasn't interested in the apologies of people who only stood by me when it was safe to do so. And Damien. He vanished. No social media. No public statements. From what I heard, Sophie had left him too. Pregnant or not, she walked. The life they tried to build on my ashes crumbled the way all lies eventually do. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No joy. Just peace. A clean break. I kept moving forward. Therapy, work, running. The basics of life. The essentials. One morning, months after the dust had settled, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunrise. It hit me, all at once, how far I'd come. I survived. I rebuilt. And the most important part, I learned that not everyone who smiles at you is a friend. That love isn't always enough. That some betrayals don't come from enemies but from the people closest to your heart. I'll never be the man I was before. That man is gone. But the man I became, he's stronger, sharper, and he knows, deep in his bones, that no one gets to write my story but me. Not anymore. Follow me for more stories.